Stefanos Tsitsipas burst onto the men's tour in 2018 with a surgically precise forehand, an affinity for finishing points off at net, and a one-handed backhand. Throw in the Wilson stick and the impressive hair, and it becomes easier to see it. Here's a stylistic protege of the Swiss maestro Roger Federer. Tsitsipas says he idolized the Swiss growing up, and Federer himself approves of the comparison.
He's talked about idolizing you. Can you see a bit of yourself in him?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
That was just after Tsitsipas had picked up the signature win of his career, beating Federer at the Australian Open. Tsitsipas came to Wimbledon that year as the world number 6, and expectations were high. After all, he possesses the game that draws comparisons to the 8-time champion at SW19. But Tsitsipas lost in the first round to Thomas Fabiano that year, and when he returned to Wimbledon following the COVID break, arriving as the world number 4, he lost again in the first round, this time to America's Frances Tiafoe. You could chalk it up to circumstance. Tsitsipas hadn't mentally recovered from a crushing Roland Garros defeat to Stan Wawrinka in 2019, and the loss of his grandmother had a similar effect potentially in 2021. But the numbers suggest there might be more to it. Maybe Roger Federer doing well on grass is not the rule, but the exception. Perhaps having a one-handed backhand in modern tennis makes it more difficult to win at Wimbledon, not less. Data from 2019 shows the only surface that single-handers were just as effective as double-handers on second serve return points was clay. On hardcourt it was somewhat closer, but on grass it wasn't. Two-handers were nearly 3% more successful than one-handers. Grass is the most server-friendly surface. The ball doesn't lose as much speed when it makes contact with the court surface, giving the returner less time to react to what is universally the fastest shot in tennis. So the return of serve requires players to abbreviate their technique to make up for that lost time, and for one-handers, that's often more difficult to achieve. Some returners have utilized deep return positions to give themselves more time, but on low bouncing grass where defense is an uphill battle due to compromised traction, ceding that court position is hardly a solution. That's why Federer has stood in, and he's implemented the chip return. It's an underspin shot that lends itself well to abbreviated stroke production. The reason Federer's chip returns work is threefold. Most importantly, it has a higher rate of landing in play. As many experts have boldly claimed, you can't win the point if you hit the return out. The second reason is height. Now, on all surfaces, a ball hit flat or with backspin bounces lower than a ball hit with topspin, but on grass, which inherently bounces lower than the other surfaces, the low bouncing effect of underspin is at its strongest. This matters because a low return is more difficult for the server to attack. From a low contact point, they're forced to hit the ball on an upward trajectory to avoid hitting the net while also making sure the ball dips back down before going long. Federer forces his opponent to take pace off the ball and add topspin in order to keep the ball in the court, and this gives the Swiss an easier second shot. The third reason is pace. The chip return is usually a slower shot. I know that sounds like a bad thing, and if the ball didn't stay low, it might be. But in this case, the low pace return forces the server to generate his own pace. Once again, slower return equals slower reply. In addition, all that time it takes for the return to reach the other side of the net is time Federer can use to recover his position to the center of the court, where he is best positioned to react to the next ball. For Tsitsipas to convert his standout transition game into great results on grass, the block return might be the shot he'll need to master, and the same goes for Dominic Thiem, another one-hander with a losing record on grass. Of course, the one-handed backhand has its strengths, like a heavier ball and more natural variety, but to master it is also to minimize its weaknesses, which includes handling the pace of a modern serve. At this year's Wimbledon, keep an eye on Tsitsipas's backhand return. For Baseline Media, I'm Gil Gross.